No, I actually think at this point, economic inequality and income inequality in America is destabilizing the coherence and stability of this society. It's undermining core traditional values such as meritocracy and social mobility. That free markets can be abused and the government needs to step in. Oakeshott believed both traditions were necessary. In fact, the genius of the West was to have both and to be able to mix the two. And to go from one to the other, depending upon contingent circumstances. This is to do no real justice to his work on aesthetics. I think his greatest essay of all is one with one of the most beautiful titles, "The Voice of Poetry in the Conversation of Mankind." He didn't like argument. He preferred conversation, in which he didn't want to win an argument. He wanted to carry on a debate. And let me tell you one very simple, really strange confluence of events. I went to England in 1989 to tell my parents I was gay, to come out finally. And I'd also got introduction. I was the only second ever PhD written on Oakeshott. He was completely ignored.
And we should explain that now there's a small cottage industry of this. Yeah. So you were way ahead of your time on that.
I was, and the reason was because I read his introduction to Hobbes's Leviathan and was so blown away intellectually that I started to study it and found there was no secondary literature at all. One, actually, Paul Franco, who's another hilarious character, who wrote an important but much more sort of straightforward attempt to describe what Oakeshott believed. And my sister, God bless her, kind of leaked the news to my dad that I might be telling them this. And so blew up my timing. And I was supposed to go visit Oakeshott. That visit. And I was going to go visit him because I hadn't written my last chapter on religion and I wanted to talk to Oakeshott about religion, which he'd written in the 30s about and never since. And yet I thought, what is this? There was hints and guesses throughout the you've read my dissertation, so you know. Anyway, my sister blew it. I had to go tell my parents, and the next day was my schedule to go to see Oakeshott. So I came out one day. The following day, I got on the train and went to see my mentor at the age of 90.
And he was living in a little cottage,
in a slate cottage on the near Langton Matravers, in a village where no one even knew who he was. When there was a big fuss about his funeral, no one in the village had any idea who he was.
And what was he like when you met him?
He met me. He was a very frail, old and gentle, kind, mischievous kind of man. Met me at his gate, brought me in, made me a little lunch. There was no central heating. There was just a coal fire. It was a slate cottage. It was a loft, really. And his, I think his third or fourth wife was there, but kind of not there. We sat in front of the fire on an autumn afternoon, and he had already read the first 4 chapters of the dissertation. And he was thrilled, of course, that a Harvard person had finally written something. But my dissertation is quite critical, because he himself moved from a much more Hegelian idealist position to a much more sort of postmodernist position, almost, of what the hell can we ever know about anything, influenced by Wittgenstein and language. But through it all, I felt there must be a religious doctrine in here. So I asked him, which was sort of ballsy in a way. You wrote about religion in your early career. Why have you not written about it? He said, well, there is one essay I've always meant to write, and I think it's probably too late for me to write it. But it's about an idea of salvation that has nothing whatsoever to do with the future.
What did he mean by that?
That was my question.
This is Delphic.
Well, first of all, I wanted to listen and think about that. And I said, you mean in contradistinction to the classic Christian notion that when we die, we're saved? He said, well, I wouldn't put it like that. He said, but my problem with salvation is Who would ever want to be saved?
Wow.
What a horrible fate. Do you think God created us, if God created us, so that we'd all become some uniform piece of goodness, that all our idiosyncrasies, that all our personalities would dissolve into some pure salvation? What a horrifying idea. That's hell. No, God loves us as we are.